for an exclusive interview is the one and only Carter Page. Carter, it's good to see you. First of all, I want to play, if you don't mind, before we get into your filing, what was said about you last night in this interview. Actually, it's the full screen. Put it up so we can read it. So Stephanopoulos said you also had your eye on Carter Page, who had also been working with the Trump campaign. Comey says correct, and Stephanopoulos says, and what was your concern there? And then Comey says, well, similarly, trying to figure out, is he in any way coordinating with the Russians as part of their effort to influence our election? Well, we hear the word collusion all the time. Collusion's not a word that's familiar to me from my work. And Comey continues and says, the question is anybody conspiring or aiding and abetting, helping the Russians accomplish their goal of interfering in the American election? That's what the counterintelligence investigation was all about. Carter, your reaction to that?
Well, I actually love that quote about, and I forget, it was a very long series of words there, but conspiring or aiding and abetting. And that is a perfect description of what the Steele dossier was doing on behalf of the DNC and the Democratic candidate that year. So, I mean, it's actually a perfect, what various people were doing in Washington. And again, it's early. We don't know the full details, but, that's basically sums it all up.
So, Carter, what happened in federal court today? What is your filing attempting to show, and what do you claim it will prove ultimately?
Well, Laura, it actually, it's a request or sort of a roadmap for what I'm planning to put out there in terms of my amended complaint. I filed a complaint last September, and I plan to do a updated complaint. And it's interesting because it was an honor to speak after the three former FBI officials. And, everything they're saying about the restoring the dignity and kind of, looking out for the dignity of the FBI, they reflect the people I've been used to. I never met Mr. Comey, and they were the type of individuals that were just on before me that really represent exactly what I'm used to dealing with in terms of all of my interaction, both with the FBI, but also, CIA and other intelligence services. So, I hope in order to do that, what they need to do is, in terms of the restoration of the dignity of the FBI, is to release those, all of the FISA warrant applications to get all the right info out there as to what actually happened.
Were you surprised, Carter? Carter, were you surprised at all when Jim Comey brushed off the question about why he didn't inform the president in his first meeting with the president in Trump Tower to do that national security brief? He didn't reveal that the dossier was funded by Hillary, and he kind of said, "Well, that wasn't my goal. That wasn't it wasn't necessary to affect my goal." Were you surprised about that?
It's just so laden with so many political motives, and I think that's just another example. I think part of that quote, I forget the exact terms he used, but I'm not sure whether I used the term Steele dossier. I wonder if he used the term dodgy dossier, because that's exactly what it was. And it's so beyond any common sense. And what's interesting over the last 24 hours and the last week or so, as this has sort of become the big news item, is I was always wondering, how come I never got any how come the FBI never reached out to me after I sent them a letter in September 2016 offering to talk to them? There are these fake reports that are out there, which apparently got used eventually in the FISA court.
Yeah, everyone, Carter, I don't mean to interrupt, but everyone should understand that not only did you offer to speak to them, then you did speak, I believe, to Congress in March of 2017, or you did speak to the DOJ in March of 2017, and then they continued to apply for another FISA extension, correct? Am I stating that correctly?
Yeah.
After you already met with them.
Basically. And, it'll be interesting once all this ridiculousness is completely out there. rank ordering the most ridiculous of the four. And, you know, I used to think that the original one, you know, after the world premiere of the Dodgy Dossier came out in October.
Yeah, each one gets worse than the next. Carter, each one gets worse than the next because in each successive application for the FISA warrant, they knew they continued to omit a material fact. And thank you so much for joining us.